Hey guys, Awesome Arcades. In this video, I am showing you our 32-inch LED Storm arcade. When I say 32 inches, I'm describing the monitor. Monitors are measured diagonally, so anytime somebody tells you they have, a 60-inch monitor or a 32-inch monitor, they're talking about the diagonal measurement. I do have another arcade on the website that is also a 32-inch LED arcade. So this one is called the Storm. The other one I have is called the Typhoon. And I get a lot of people that say, well, what are the difference between the two? Because they're the same price. They both have a 32-inch monitor. And so real quick, the only thing I'll say is that the Typhoon and the Storm are very similar. They have the same monitor, the same joysticks and buttons. They have the same wiring harnesses. The only real difference is that the Storm, has a metal shell. It's a metal subframe with an interchangeable shell. And if you go on the website, you're going to notice that I've got blue, black, red, and if you check back around December of this year, this is 2021, I am going to be getting gray and white. In terms of the Typhoon, the Typhoon is a black cabinet. It's made of wood. It's made of the same material that my cocktail tables are made out of. So the Typhoon is a wood cabinet. It's a little bit heavier. It's 2 inches taller, but it does have the same monitor and all the same components. Really, the main difference is just how they look. It's all aesthetics. It's about what is more pleasing to the eye to each customer, since basically they do the same things, they play the same games. And so one thing I'll point out, this backlit plexiglass thing here is called the Marquee. There are two different options on the website. This one is obviously the arcade one. I've got another one that is my business logo. It says Awesome, and those are backlit. If you wanted to get something different, it's very easy to change that. There's just 6 bolts on the back, and you can lift that little blue thing off there and then slide in a new thing and then put the 6 bolts back in. It takes like 3 minutes. If you wanted to get like your last name, your business name, your kid's name for his birthday, something like that, I do have access to a graphic designer that can create something for you. If you did want to get something that is licensed, I get a lot of requests for like Marvel superheroes or Street Fighter, Pac-Man. Legally, I can't ship those things, but I do know a guy that can make those for you, and you could buy those direct from him. I just can't install them for you. You'd have to install that yourself. Again, if it's not licensed, I can definitely install it. If it's trademarked or licensed, you could do that at home. I do have a video that'll kind of walk you through that process. It's super simple. So that's an optional base that you could add during checkout. There's also an optional trackball that you could add during checkout. And there are some optional PlayStation controllers up here that I'll tell you about in a second that you can add during checkout. This cabinet right here is on wheels. So on the bottom of the cabinet, there's 4 wheels. You can roll it around. There's also levelers that you can unscrew. So when you get it to the spot where you want it to sit, you can just unlevel those and bring it on down, and then it'll be, it'll stay put once you screw those things down. They've got like a little rubber gasket on the bottom, so they'll stick to the ground. And so the height. This cabinet is 60 inches off the base, and so obviously it's a standing machine with the base. The base is a 12-inch lift, so it raises it up to about 72 inches. Without the base, it is 60 inches. So without the base, you could actually sit at a folding chair, or I like to use my little chrome stool here. With the base, it is a stand-up game. Most people get the base. Of course, you don't have to get the base, but if you're interested, I'd say probably 90% of people choose the base. And so this machine is designed to play what are called horizontal games. Horizontal just means landscape. And so if you're looking around at different companies that sell arcade games, you might have heard this, maybe not, but there's 2 kinds of games in this world. Games that go side to side, they're called horizontal games, and games that move up and down, they're called vertical games. So side to side games, examples of those are games like Defender, Super Mario Brothers, Street Fighter. So for an arcade company to build an arcade that plays horizontal games, what we do is we take a TV, the same way you watch TV at home on your TV stand, and they just install it right into the cabinet. Landscape orientation. The other kind of game is called a vertical game. Vertical game examples are games like Miss Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga, Frogger. To play vertical games, what an arcade game company does is they take that TV that's on your TV stand at home, and they turn it from landscape, I almost said portrait. They turn it from landscape into portrait. And so if you walked up to a Miss Pac-Man arcade, what you'd be looking at is a TV that has actually been turned on its side and installed into the cabinet, and it plays those games in a vertical mode. And so there's a game board that I'm going to show you in a second that actually can play both. It can do both vertical and horizontal games, all from a horizontal or landscape screen. Now, that type of capability didn't used to be available. Up until about 5 years ago, if a customer called and said, hey, I want a machine that can do Super Mario Brothers and Miss Pac-Man, we couldn't do it. Because of how the monitor is installed, if you wanted those two kinds of games, you had to buy two separate cabinets. And then a company called Pandora and a couple of others started coming out with different game boards that could play both vertical and horizontal games. And so the game board that I'm showing you right now is called the Pandora Family DX, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. But it does have the ability to display. So this is just the menu screen. When you choose a game, it does fill up the full screen if you're playing horizontal games like Defender. Now, if you play a vertical game on this horizontal screen, what it's going to do, it's going to put in little black bars on the side, and then it's going to play the vertical game in like a square on the center of the screen. It does not fill the full screen. And that's actually a good thing, because it's actually going to play it in the original 4:3 aspect ratio. When they first started doing the vertical horizontal thing, the first versions of those boards that came out, they would take games like Miss Pac-Man and they would just stretch them out to fill the full screen. But what that would do is it would affect the movement, because the image has been stretched out. The movement side to side was not going to be the same speed as the movement up and down. And eventually they figured out a way to put them in their original aspect ratio, which was 4:3. There's asteroids. It's almost like if you've ever watched an 80s movie on a modern widescreen TV, you know how they put those little black bars on the top and the bottom? It's basically the same thing, but they're going to be doing it on the side. Sometimes they do it on, they'll have the black bar on one side, like Pac-Man is a black bar here, and then the square is shifted to the right. Sometimes it's on both sides, like Miss Pac-Man. But anyway, so these machines play what are called JAMMA game boards. And so JAMMA is a programming language, but in a nutshell, I've got one sitting here. This is what the board looks like. I bought this on Amazon Prime. It was 90 bucks. There are direct links on where to buy these in the product description for this cabinet. But basically, a JAMMA board looks just like, almost like a Nintendo cartridge. If you ever remember like a Nintendo cartridge, you kind of had to blow down in the hole to get them to work. And so inside they had those teeth. But basically, this cabinet has a door on the front. When you remove that door, inside, you're going to see something that looks just like this. And so basically, this is the female part. And you're going to take this female part, and it gets pressed onto, try to hold the phone with one hand to do it. But that part gets pressed onto that part. And then there's a monitor cable, just like a computer monitor. That gets plugged into the back. And then if you do decide to get the trackball, there is a little trackball port here. And so that's what that's for. And so these are called JAMMA game boards. JAMMA is a programming language, J-A-M-M-A. And if you're shopping around, you're looking at all these different companies' games, all multi-game arcade companies and most arcades in general are playing a platform called JAMMA. JAMMA is just a universal programming language that arcade game companies came out with in the early 80s, and that way they could have kind of interchangeable games and interchangeable parts. It's almost like saying like Blu-ray or MS-DOS. And so there's a lot of different companies that make different kinds of JAMMA boards. My job as a guy who sells arcade cabinets is to find the best JAMMA boards. And I've bought a whole bunch of different brands, and I stumbled across a company a couple of years ago called Pandora. And of all the game boards that I've bought and tried, Pandora it's by far the best for a lot of different reasons. Not the least of which is just the fact that the games are identical to the original. There's no glitchy games. Like, I've bought some boards and it says, oh, we have 3,000 games. And then you load up the game list and it'll have 85 versions of Street Fighter 2. You know, they're more concerned with advertising some targeted number of games than the actual games themselves. Like, I don't care if there's 85 versions of one game. I'd rather just have you list it once so I don't have to scroll through all of them. And then on a lot of the other games, there were like glitchy games, or the games would freeze. They didn't have the original graphics. They weren't the original versions. It'd be like, you know, Donkey Kang instead of Donkey Kong, that kind of thing. Every single game on the Pandora boards are tested. They're the original version, and they are flawless. They're exactly the same as they were originally. One of the other benefits of Pandora in general is that they have a really easy to use search function. And so if you ever want to search for the games, it's got a search function. You can just manually type in the title of the game that you're looking for. The other thing that I really like about it is that it's got kind of subcategories by genre. So it's got 3D games, action games, fighting, flying, 4-player games. The best thing, though, about this search function is that a lot of the other game companies, game boards that I've looked at, the titles have been translated from Chinese, and the person that did the translations on every other company that I've seen other than Pandora, they're not native English speakers. And there was so many typos that it was, I mean, a lot of the games, the typos were on like the first 2 letters, so you couldn't even search for them. And it was really, really bad. This game board, the Pandora DX family, has no typos. And I've actually corresponded quite a bit with the Pandora company, just over the years, emailing them with questions and tips, and they always send me announcements when the new boards come out. I actually do buy a lot of components from them, and whoever I'm talking to is based in Canada, and they are a native English speaker, and their customer service is great. They understand what I'm asking them. And look, I have no problem with Chinese, but it is a problem when I'm looking for a title on a game and the letters are transposed, or if I'm trying to ask questions of a customer service rep and they don't know what I'm asking. So so there's a brand new Pandora. Pandora comes out with a brand new game board every like 18 months, and it's like the newest version. I say that in another video I did, I talked about like a new Pandora board, and this is a new Pandora board. But I had a customer say that he was very concerned that because this was a brand new company that they might have glitches, and I realized that I didn't explain well enough that this isn't a new company. Pandora's been around for a long time, and they come out with new game boards every 18 months. This is just the latest Pandora board that just came out in 2021, and it is amazing. It's almost like, if you look at other Pandora boards, you might call them like the iPhone 3, the iPhone 5, the iPhone 6. So this is like the iPhone 12. And it's got a lot of bells and whistles that were not previously available on any other boards. I've got some notes here that I don't want to forget anything. I should just point out that if you keep scrolling down in the product description for this machine, there's like a 30-minute video that I will go into more detail where I actually open up a lot of the games and I show you the gameplay. I get that if you're shopping around, you might not even be sure if you're going to be buying from me or this machine, and a lot of people don't have 30 minutes to invest in learning about a product that they might not even be buying. So I do try to keep these videos somewhat brief, like an introductory video, just so you can hear me and kind of get a general overview of the game. But if you scroll down through the product description, there is going to be a more detailed video that'll give you, kind of a better overview and physically show you what the games look like being played. But basically, what this new Pandora board can do that some of the other boards couldn't. First of all, you can now add a trackball. Okay, this Pandora board used to be amazing, and I loved it, and I would always refer my customers to get that particular board, but it did have a downside, and that main downside was that it didn't support a trackball. That has changed. So you can now add a trackball. That's an option available during checkout. You don't need the trackball. There are trackball games on this board. I don't want to say all, but most of the games you can play without the trackball, like Centipede and Millipede, you can play with the joystick, for example. But if you wanted to get a trackball, it is an option that's now available. But the best thing about this board, and the thing that has never previously before been available, is that inside that board, there are what are called emulators. Emulators are software that allows you to play other kind of gaming platforms. So, what do I mean by that? This board comes with 3,000 original arcade games, and it's got almost every arcade game ever made. In addition, though, you can now download on a USB stick, and there's instructions on the website how to do this. You get a USB stick, and on the back of the case here, you can plug that in. You go to this website, well, you go to your computer, you put the USB stick in, and you can download Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, Sega Genesis, and a few other games. And that board has all the software inside, and it knows how to play those. And so this game board has 3,000 games already installed, but anything above 3,000, let's say you're going through the game list and it goes all the way up to 3,000, anything above that, these are games that I just went on some website and I downloaded for free, and I've got a USB stick stuck in the back of the cabinet. And so Spy Hunter, Punch-Out, the original Legend of Zelda, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Mega Man, Metroid, Skate or Die, Castlevania. So yeah, to me, that was a game changer. I love the fact that I can now go and download unlimited numbers of additional video games side by side with the coin-operated arcade games. So that's really cool. The other thing that this thing can do is you can actually now create save points. And so if you're playing a game like Miss Pac-Man, and you know you've been playing for a half hour, you got a whole bunch of points, you get a phone call, but you don't want to stop, you can press and hold the one-player start button. When you do that, a window will pop up. It'll say continue, exit, save point, or load save point. Okay, again, it'll say you can continue, so a window will pop up and it'll freeze the gameplay. You can freeze it, pause it basically, you can go back in and keep playing, or you could create a save point and then quit, and then tomorrow you can turn it on and pick up right where you left off. So you can create save points and then load up those save points even after the machine has been powered off and continue playing from where you were. So like if you're on Tetris and you have 100 lines and you want to pick up where you left off, you can do that. That was never previously available. In addition, you can now play 4-player games. And so on the game list here, so I'll just show you this. This is my favorites list right here. And from the menu screen, if you notice up here, it says page 1 of 316. There's 10 games per page, and it stops at 3,000. If you press down on the joystick, it will scroll, rapid scroll. If you press right on the joystick, it'll actually rapid scroll one page at a time. But if you notice here, you look at these stars. This is the favorites list that I've created. And it's super easy to create a favorites list. There's a little button on the side of the board that you press, and then it'll say, and that's covered in other videos, but basically you just go down the game list. If you see something you like, you press the A button, and it'll add a little star to it, and the next time you turn the board on, those stars will pop up first on the game list. So these are just some of my favorites you can see here. I also do like that it shows you a preview of what the game looks like if there's a game title that you're not familiar with. I forgot to mention this. So the DX, they call this board the family board, and I was kind of trying to figure out what that meant. Like, why do they call it the family board? And insofar as what I can see, this board seems to have way more late 70s, early 80s games than any other board that I've seen. It does have some fighting games, quite a few, like your Mortal Kombats and your Street Fighters, but I think it's geared more toward kids or a family orientation because it's got less, you know, kind of violent games and more like original classic arcade games. Like, this is the first baseball game that came out. This came out in 1980. Fire Truck is one of the first, I mean, this is like right around the same time Pong came out. And so I think that's why they call it family, because it does have a lot more kind of family-friendly games. But you can see here, I've got the favorites list. You scroll through that. Now, when you get to the end of the game list, you'll notice that a lot of these games have the word 4P next to them. And so now what you can do is, during checkout, I've alluded to this earlier, I've got these PlayStation controllers. You can actually play 4-player games where player 1 and 2 will use the joysticks, and then you could add players 3 and 4 through these PlayStation, I call them PlayStation, they're PlayStation-style controllers. They're not actually PlayStation controllers. These are USB plugs. The original PlayStation plug was not a USB. But basically, you can do 4 people playing all at the same time. So games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where you guys are each one of the 4 turtles and you're playing all at the same time. Or you could play games like NBA Jams, where you guys are like the Chicago Bulls versus the Utah Jazz with John Stockton and Karl Malone and I don't think it's Michael Jordan. I think it's Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. Anyway, so that was never before available. And yeah. You know what, I'm going to show you real quick. This video is 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep it short. So on the side of the board, there's a little button. And so that's my USB stick for the games that I downloaded. That's the monitor cable. That's that thing over there that I showed you that you stick onto the board. And then this is the USB. I've got a USB splitter because one of these is for the trackball and the other 2 are for the PlayStation controllers. If you're curious, this is a stereo amplifier that's blinking. It's supposed to be. You've got bass, treble, volume, and speaker. This thing does have 4 speakers. There's 2 down there and 2 up there. It does get probably louder than you would ever want. And And if you open this coin door, there is a functional coin mechanism. So if you drop a coin down there, it goes down through this functional coin mechanism and it drops into the coin box. And so on the side of the board, there's a little button here. And as we hit that, it's going to start playing some classical music. I'm going to turn that down. And so this is the setup screen. Now, one thing I should just point out, the last thing in the world I want to do is ship you a machine that has problems. So I'm very careful to test the machines. Anytime somebody places an order, the first thing I'm going to do is just email you, asking you to verify the details of the order. I do that as much for your benefit as it is for mine, because I don't want to ship you the wrong thing to the wrong place. I mean, normally what I do is I text people immediately when the order pops up. I kind of like to respond to people immediately and just, I don't want to say shock them, but as soon as the order pops up, I'm going to text you. And then I'm going to tell you that I'll email you a detailed confirmation. But in that confirmation, I am going to just confirm where it's going, what you bought. But before I ship, I'm going to go over here and do what's called an I/O test. So the I/O test is basically a setting in the board where I can press it and I can go in and I can confirm that all the joysticks and buttons are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So I just thought I'd show you that real quick. So let me bounce out of this. And if you come down here to system configuration, and so if you go in there, you can come down here and this is where you would set it for, I've got it set on free play. You can make it take 1, 2, 3, or 4 coins per credit. Exit game mode, hold and press the one player start button for 3 seconds. That's just how you leave the games. But the one thing I wanted to show you about this, under gamepad settings, so if you want, you can actually make player 1 through the PlayStation controller, player 2, and then you could do player 3 and 4, or you could mix and match. You could do 1, 2, 3, 4, or any combination. That's what this is for here. So you can see you can play around with that. The other thing I wanted to show you is under game setting. This is how you do the favorites list. And so first thing I'll show you is you can increase and decrease the number of lives and difficulty for individual games. Now that doesn't work on every single game, but it does work on quite a few of them. For example, on Miss Pac-Man, you can add, I think you get 3 lives per credit. That's just the factory default, but you can bump that up to 5 lives. I like to play with this for, I've got a 4-year-old who's about to be 5. I like to decrease the difficulty level on some of the games for him so he can play. His coordination's not that great yet. So you can also edit the game list. If there's games on this game list that you know you're never going to play, you can turn them off. Now it doesn't delete them, it just takes them off of the game list, so when you turn it on, you're not going to see them. You can always add them back after the fact. So again, it doesn't delete them, it just removes them from the list of games that you see when you turn the machine on. But the main thing I wanted to show you over here is the edit favorites list. And so when you do that, so just so you know, this is A, B, C, D, E, F, and then it tells you exactly what to push. So it says press the C button to edit your favorites list. So we're going to do that, and then you'll notice over here it shows you all the games. If you wanted to add Street Fighter EX Plus to your favorites list, so you go to edit favorites list, and then it will say, what do I do here? Oop, I did something wrong here. Let me try this again here. Game setting. Edit favorites list. Oh, I was hitting D and I should have been hitting C. Okay, let's try that again. Edit favorites list, and then over here you press A next to something and it'll add a star to it. Once you've added the game to the favorites list, you're going to go back by pressing the white button. Once you're there, you just save and exit. Always make sure you save and exit or it won't keep your change. So save setting, it says press OK to do that. A to press OK. Again, here's your A button, so save and reboot. One of the other things I really love about this board is that it is lightning fast, just like iPhones, right? So like the chip that's in this board is a lot faster than a lot of the previous versions, and it does load up and exit out of the games really quickly. Okay, I think that is it for this. I'm going to upload this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll take it from there.